You guys, Lisa Alexander, founder and executive director of Stand Up Survivor. This is take two. All right. So if you're watching with us a second ago, come on in here. My apologies for the technical difficulties, but I was frozen and it wasn't cute. So we're back. We had to reset that thing. So come on in here. Let people know that we are live. Please like and share. Let us know where you are tuning in from. We are looking forward to chatting with you tonight. And if you have any questions, I'm going to put Janelle on the spot. Go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll see if we can touch on anything about advocacy or anything similar in the chat. We'll see if we can touch on some of those tonight. So come back on in here. Thanks for coming back. Sorry about the technical difficulties. So my name is Lisa Alexander, and I'm the founder and executive director of Stand Up Survivor. And tonight I am joined by my domestic violence advocate, Janelle. Hey, Janelle.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you. I'm looking forward to just such a really good conversation. And as you know, if you guys do not know, this month is Stand Up Survivor's 6th birthday. We have been around for 6 years. And it all started with this woman that you see on the screen, right? I would not be who I am or where I am without this woman. And so I want to make sure that you guys hear our story. So people ask us all the time, how did you start Stand Up Survivor? How did you become an advocate? What was your journey like? And so during our birthday month, we're going to have different guests. We have some survivors that we journeyed with that are going to be coming on. We have some people that work with us, some of our staff members. And of course, I had to start with my own domestic violence advocate. So, hey, Janelle.
Hey.
Hi, so glad that you are here. And so the biggest part of my story is when I was ready, when I was at the point where when I was ready to leave my marriage, I was actually still in it. I walked in this woman's classroom. She was a domestic violence advocate. And I said that God is going to save my marriage. As a Christian, my faith is very important to me. My marriage was very important to me. And I said that God's going to save my marriage. And she looked at me and she said, okay. And that was a really, really pivotal moment for me. And so for those of you that kind of missed it the first time, because this is our second replay real quick. Janelle, when I walked in your class and I said that God is going to save my marriage, what were you thinking?
I was just like, okay. And I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
And that's it. No judgment, no questions. I just wanted to provide a safe space for you so that you can get whatever it was that you needed in that moment.
And that's really, really big for survivors of abuse that are going through, because that moment could have been really pivotal for me. It could have been the moment where I decided to stay in her class or leave her class. It could have been the moment that really turned me away or turned me on to what was happening. And I'm just I'm always forever thankful for that moment that she just said, okay. Our words can be super duper powerful. And so that word that she said to me that day allowed me to, okay. So I was a little surprised because I expected to hear judgment because, when you tell people that you're in an abusive relationship and that you want to stay, they don't understand that. That's really mind blowing to them. And so people ask us all the time, Janelle, how do you become an advocate? Why? I want to become an advocate. I want to help people, but I really want to give them a little bit of my story and also a little bit about what that journey looks like to be an advocate, because it's not an easy road to take.
It's not. Being an advocate, I feel like that's just a calling in your life, right? Like you want to help people, and advocacy looks different in all these different arenas of helping people. But when it specifically comes to domestic violence, it takes a very compassionate person and somebody who's understanding and open-minded. Because to your point earlier, if I would have asked all these questions, well, what do you mean you want to save your marriage? Aren't you in an abusive relationship? Isn't that why you're here? Like, I'm giving you these tools. If you come to it with that mindset, you're not going to be helpful to anybody. So advocacy is really about compassion, understanding, open-mindedness, and empowerment, like really giving people the tools to be empowered to make the next step in their life, not, jump into the biggest step of their life, but taking those progressive steps.
I love that. I love that you talked about empowerment, though, because that's one big thing that we're big on at Stand Up Survivor.
Right.
Empowerment, because we can't do everything for survivors. They have to be willing and want to do it for themselves. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things that really made the dynamic of our relationship really good, because you showed me, it's like you gave me a blueprint. You showed me how to get there, but you also held my hand and journeyed with me. Like you didn't just point over and say, oh, well, you need to leave. And you took me through the journey of getting my resume together, helping me find a place to live, and all those steps. So I walked in this ladies' class, you guys, right? And I was like, God's going to save my marriage. And so for me, I was devastated. I didn't want to be divorced.
Right.
I didn't want my children to be without their father. I wanted to stay in my marriage. I loved my husband, but I knew that I was dying, just physically, emotionally, mentally, I was dying. And so I sought help. And so we met at an undisclosed location, and week after week, I went back to this woman's class because every time I went, I learned something else.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, you know, we don't even know that we're in an abusive relationship. Janelle, I had no idea, as you know, that I was in an abusive relationship. No one could do that.
Right. And the thing is, like, I'm glad that the first time was in the group setting, because that allowed you to see that you were not alone. Right. And so for some people, group is great. For other people, it's not. In your situation, in your moment, group was good because it allowed you to see, okay, wait, I'm not alone. And there's people here that obviously are getting some kind of help and information. And it just, every week is something different because people in relationships, in a domestic violence relationships, don't like always know that that's what it is, you know, that, well, he's not putting his hands on me. So there's no physical abuse. Okay, but here are other common things that happen in abusive situations and abusive relationships: emotional, mental, financial, you know, so being able to learn that and how it affects the children, how it affects your family and your friends, you know, the judicial systems, because we all know how hard those are to navigate, and being able to navigate that together. And as an advocate, you know, that's what your role is. That's what my role was, and still it continues to be to this day, is to be there next to you, right? Like, lead when I need, when you need me to, and fall back when I need to fall back, but always be beside you.
Yeah, that's good. I love that. And that's one of the big things about STEM survivors. Our goal is to journey with you. Like, and it's one thing about survivors of abuse, we've had no control previously. So giving us autonomy is so important. Allowing us to make the decisions, whether it's to pick out a pillowcase cover or to change our own kid's diaper or to pick where we're going to live or where we're going to work. We haven't had that for so long. So to give back to us is so important. I always tell people when they're working with survivors of abuse, don't tell them what to do.
Oh my gosh, right.
Don't tell us what to do. Give us the freedom to do it ourselves. And so people always talk about advocacy. It's so important because I remember, so one thing about my advocate, which I am, okay, I'm the advocate I am today because of the advocate that I had, right? And we're big about walking with you. So I was still in my marriage when I went to her class. I wasn't ready to leave yet. And yet she was still equipping me and empowering me to know what domestic violence looks like, so that every time I went, I kind of got further and further away from my relationship because I became educated about what it looked like. And, you know, Janelle, although mine was very physically abusive, I still didn't know it was abuse.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Right. Because, you know, I think part of it is we don't want to always see it or believe it because we want to see and believe the good in that person and those good times that we had with those people, you know, and so but the more you grow, the more you get educated on, this is not normal, this is not healthy, you know, so that's the bottom line, is it's not healthy. So it's beyond now toxic into abusive, where you are in fear for your life, and the power and control dynamic is not an equal playing field, you know. So that's
and like you said, running for your life. There were so many nights. My best friend's gonna come on later this month and at the end of the month actually, and share some stories with you guys about times when she had to come get me and rescue me, and literally when I was running for my life. But when we're in the situation, sometimes we just can't see it, and it literally takes somebody coming alongside you to take your hand and say, hey, you can do this, you know. And for one of the things about STEM survivor, whether you leave or whether you don't, whether you're in it or whether you're not, like we literally helped a survivor leave the other day, and we had been working with her for over a year. And then that day she called, and I knew that she was ready. I could hear it in her voice, and I knew that it was time to execute her safety plan. We're not going to say, oh, well, you're not ready to go, call us when you are. Because
never.
Imagine if you'd have done that to me when I walked
in. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it takes at least 7 times. I've had survivors that came back and forth, and I'm not anybody to judge. You know your situation more than anybody else because you're living it. So
Yeah.
each time you come back, whether it's the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, I'm going to equip you with a little bit more information. We're going to
Good.
adjust that safety plan to this situation that's currently happening because it's not the same as it was the first time around. So it's being able to be flexible
Yeah.
and navigate those areas with the survivors.
That's so good. Not getting tired of us, not getting exhausted, and
Mhm.
understanding the journey that we're in because it's not
Mhm.
easy. When I left, my kids were 2 and 3 years old, and I needed a place to live. And I shared that with Janelle. She said, "I got it." She said, "I got it." And I think it was like 3 months or something like that. Like it wasn't even super long, you guys. She was like,
Yeah.
"Find a place to live, and we will assist you in paying a portion of your rent." Right. And so I found a 3 bedroom, 2 bath house, right?
Mhm.
So keep in mind, I had come from a house and I left with nothing. I literally left with whatever I could fit in my car and my 2 children. And I had nothing, right? And so she says, "Go ahead." She says, "Find a place to live." And I found a place. It was a house. And I had my children, they still shared a room. I had another extra room and my own room. It was just like this. She was like, "Fine, and we'll take care of the majority of the rent for a year." A
Mhm.
year, you guys. I don't even know. And even when we share this story, even within the agency, they're like, "Oh, wow, she went above and beyond." I had that advocate who went above and beyond to make sure that me and my children had a place to live. And I'm going to ramble a little bit, but I also wanted to go back to school. I also needed a job. She's like, "Okay, let's do that. Help me
Yeah.
take care of my resume." I went back to school. And all of this is like, it's a journey. It's a step-by-step process. And she didn't say, "Oh, well, there's a college right there," or, go do this. She equipped me and helped me to take the step after step that I needed. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I know every advocate is not like that. But if you're
Right.
listening and you want to make a difference in the lives of survivors, understand it takes patience and it takes
Mhm.
genuine care and concern to be there for someone.
Right.
So there was a question in the comments. Okay, I'll answer the first one. Why do they go back even when they know it's toxic? There's a lot of reasons. You
Oh,
want to
gotcha.
go for it? Go
Go
for it.
ahead. Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
because we love them,
Yes.
because we made a commitment, because we have children, and some people know it's toxic, but some people don't know that it's a toxic relationship.
Right.
And for myself, I knew that it hurt. I knew that I didn't like it. I didn't know that it was toxic and poisonous and abusive, right?
Mhm.
Until I got that education. And that's what I love about this platform, right? Is because people always tell us, "Oh my God, I had no idea that was abuse." Like, yes, come on
Mhm.
here, because that's abuse. And once
Right.
you're educated on something, you're able to make a better decision. And that's what you, as my advocate, was able to do for me.
Yes. And so to that point, I mean, so many reasons aside from you love that person, you want to remember the good times. Um, Financial. If that was the breadwinner, you have no money to go anywhere else, and you tried, right? You try to go out on your own, and it's like, okay, this is not working. So then you have to go back. Or the mental and emotional abuse takes a toll, and they tell you nobody's ever going to want to be with you, and you go out there and it's like, wow, nobody even looks in my direction. So you go back. There's
Yeah.
so many
So,
different reasons. Or, you may be out of the relationship for a few months and then next thing you know, they're calling DCF on you with your kids and telling you, if you don't come back to me, I'm going to keep calling. I'm going to keep, so there's so many different variables as to why a survivor goes back. The question should be, why does the abuser keep abusing?
that's the main question, isn't it?
Like
Right.
that's the question, because it's if it wasn't for the abuse, the relationship would be a
Yeah.
healthy,
Yeah.
regular relationship.
Yeah.
But with that power dynamic shift, it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone said, "How do you explain to someone why it took so long to leave?" And so I will say this, you said, because people don't listen. Or first of all, if you still have to explain to people why you went back so many times, don't bother. They're not even
Right.
worth it. I'm just going to give it to you honest and plain. I don't want to. You don't listen. You already struggled to get out. You don't have to bother to explain to them why you went back so many times. If you so
Right.
choose, you can be honest with them. But I would always encourage people, when you are in the place where you're ready to share your story or ready to explain your why, make sure you
Hmm.
do it in a safe place with
Right.
safe people. And if they have proven to not be safe, save your story for some place that's safe,
Absolutely.
because you do not need any more judgment. You do not need any more ridicule. You've had enough of that, and you're trying to
Hmm.
clear the air in the space moving forward. So
Right.
um That is what I would say as far as that's concerned. We go, oh my goodness, I packed up so many times. We moved to Alabama. I got on a plane. I came back. I packed my stuff and I went back every time because he promised he was going to change. He promised it was going to be different.
That part, the promises of change.
And I believe it because you want to believe it,
Right.
You want to believe it. But I always say there comes a point, right? Even with that survivor I was telling you about that we worked with for a year, there comes a point, and I knew in the tone in her voice when she called, she was ready. So it was time for us to execute her safety plan, right? Yep. And so, there comes a point, for me, it was a night, and I, if you haven't heard this story, I was watching a woman on YouTube, and she shared her story. Meanwhile, I've been getting educated about this, so I knew a little bit, but I logged in, and I was Googling stuff, and this lady on YouTube came and she told her story about being in an abusive relationship. She got out and she was remarried and happy and stuff. And I was floored. I couldn't believe it. I had never seen anything like this. I didn't know something like this existed. And that was the night that I packed up my children and I left. He had already gone because we had an argument about something and he left. So I left the note on the counter and I packed my children and I left. I never went back to our home together. So I believe that everyone has a point.
Right.
In my personality, and I know it's just never too late for that point. Because I knew he was going to kill me. It wasn't an if or maybe, or he was going to kill me, whether intentionally or unintentionally. From with a blow to a head, pushing me, whatever he always did, I knew it. And so I knew my kids were 2 and 3 years old, Janelle. I was no way I was going to let anybody else raise my children. I prayed to God. I said, please let me live so I could care for my children. And here we are.
Yes. Amen to that.
Yeah, it was a really big deal. So what would you say to someone who was wanting to become an advocate? Because people say this all the time. But let me just chime in. You need to be healed first, but okay.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Because this
number one.
It's triggering. It is all day long, 24/7. We hear stories. We work with survivors of abuse, and you have to be ready.
Yes. So that is absolutely the number one thing, is that you have to be healed from if you've experienced it personally, and that's the reason that you're wanting to help. Whether because you experienced abuse firsthand or you were a product of domestic violence, there has to be healing done. The next part is to what I said earlier, you have to be compassionate. You have to be patient. You have to be open-minded and understanding that everybody's situation is not going to look the same, although there may be commonalities. So being able to help also, it includes understanding your resources, knowing what resources are available to people. I think that's really important in advocacy, and that you will be able to talk for your survivor when they need you to speak up for them. When they say, well, I don't know how to schedule that appointment. I don't know how to call. I don't know how to talk to them. And with their permission, you walk through that together. So, and just making sure that at the end of the day, you're not judging that person and their situation, that you're really just showing them compassion and understanding and equipping them with the tools and the resources necessary to help them. And to that point, not taking things personally when they're doing really well, or on the opposite spectrum when something goes wrong, because things will go wrong and you just can't take it personal. Our survivors feel safe with us, right? So when something goes wrong and they start to lash out on you, just say, I understand you're frustrated. Thank you for trusting me with this, right? Because I'm lashing out on you like what family does is I'm going to lash out on the person who's closest to me because I know that at the end of the day, they're always going to be there for me. But then redirecting, right? And saying, look, I understand your frustration and where this happened to go wrong, but here's a solution. Let's work on it and let's fix it together. And also the wins, like we can't take those personally as much as we would like to, but you hold on to them. You definitely hold on to them, because I've held on to them because of you, people like you, survivors like you. So
and the wins are good to see, because we also see the down parts where they stay in the abusive relationship, or they stay stuck in a cycle of abuse. But you made a couple of points that I want to talk about. Brittany said it in the comments, talking about check your biases. That's really, really, you cannot sit across from someone and
Mm-hmm.
assume that you know them, assume you know their situation, or be ready to judge off the bat. You can't. You got to check
Right.
your glasses at the door and be willing to sit across from anyone that comes in your door, regardless
Any
of their situation.
diversity, culture, and understanding other people's cultures plays a big role in it as well.
And don't take it personal. You didn't
Yeah.
do it. It's not. They're not angry with you. They're angry at the
Right.
situation, and injustice was done to them. So don't take
Mm-hmm.
it personal. So someone asked a question. Hi, Salam. Salam asked, "How do you find a supportive advocate or support group?"
So I always say, just look at your local resources and see how you vibe with that person. See if you feel comfortable, if you feel safe with them. And when you're in a support group, you don't have to let everything out on the first time. You can sit back and observe and see if this is where you are meant to be. But definitely, as far as supporting, it's really about how do you interact with that person. Do you feel heard? Do you feel validated? Those are things that you want to think about. And do you feel safe? At the end of the day, when you're in that office with that advocate, do you feel safe with them and validated?
That's important because you need a safe space, and your
Mm-hmm.
advocate really is the beginning of what that journey looks like.
Right.
And so definitely, that's it. That was great. So journeying on. So I went back to school. As you guys know, I did go back to school.
Yay.
She was right there. I was like, I need to get my resume. I need a job. All these things. I knew
Yeah.
that I wasn't okay. He didn't let me go to school. We're in a relationship. He thought I was sleeping with the professors. There's always some reason that I couldn't advance in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back to school and I did my bachelor's and I did my master's degree. And this girl is she's been cheering me on the whole time, because
Yeah.
as an advocate, when you see your someone that you've helped, one of your survivors thriving, healing, moving
Absolutely.
forward, you say it. Okay, go ahead. I shouldn't say it.
Okay, so of course I might start crying. This is the part.
No, it's fine.
this is the part where I'll probably start crying. So as an advocate, we see a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of things that are really difficult. And a lot of times we help people, and to not take it personal, you kind of just, go along that, and you pray that you've given them the resources. So you don't get to see, I guess, the fruits of your labor, right? You don't really get to see that. So when you do get to see it, it's like, wow. And with you, I got to see it like tenfold. You said you weren't going to get divorced. You got divorced. We walked through that judicial system together, right? You didn't have anywhere to live. We got you a place to live. You didn't know how to budget money. You were able to save money. You didn't have a degree. You went back and you got not just your bachelor's, not just your master's, but now your PhD. You started a whole agency because you knew that there was other people out there, not just locally, but like globally around the world, that you wanted to make feel the way that you felt, knowing that you could be so much bigger than your situation. Mm-hmm. And you didn't let that define you. And to be able to see that and be a part of that, it's just like, wow, I made a difference in this person's life, and I thank God every day that he put you in my path, because to just be able to see what you've done, like to see your kids grow, I think that part is really important for me too, because a lot of times survivors don't see how it affects their children. And that's part of what we used to talk about in our group classes. Mm-hmm. That's a topic that we discussed that's very personal and near and dear to me. So to be able to see your kids thriving now, to see that you did find love again, you're just like the epitome of somebody who used all their resources stay true to God, and put all those tools to use, and look where you are now. And I'm just so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. You don't get to make me cry. You guys, she cries all the time, every time. But you know what? It's so funny because I'll say I can talk about my story a million times, right, and not cry. But when I talk about the people that were on my journey to help me forget it, I'm a wreck because I know when I walked into her office, it was a wrap. God was going to save my marriage. I was going to stay married, but I was broken and I was devastated. And now this woman gets to walk alongside me as we impact people around the world, And so I am forever, I call her my Shiro. I'm forever thankful because everyone doesn't have an advocate like I had. And that's for those of you that are asking, I would encourage you to really search your heart because it's a hard road. You do not get to see. You see, and some victims end up going back. Some don't make it out. Some people's children get taken away in the system. There's so much that oftentimes people don't turn around to say thank you or this is how you helped me or change my life, But I told Zanelli, I said, I'm here because when I walked into your class, you were there for me. And I told wherever I go in the entire world, I'm taking her with me because I want her to know the impact she had. And now Stand Up Survivor. Last year, we reached 20 million people. Every month, almost a million. Last month, 2 million people with domestic violence. You know how many people's lives that we have saved because of the woman that I'm looking at on the screen who decided to advocate for me and help me find my voice. And so that's why, I decided to turn it into, she is. Thank you. She is my angel. I call her my Shiro because you never know the impact that you're going to have on someone's life. And I had no idea. I didn't grow up saying I was going to be a domestic violence advocate, but I realized that I went through this. So I was going to turn this into purpose. I was going to turn it into power. And if I could turn around and do for someone else what was done for me, I'm going to do it 10 times over,
Absolutely.
And I'm not if I could help one person, I don't want to help one person. Every 9 seconds, someone is beaten. I mean, people are dying every day. So I need to help as many as I can. We have 104,000 people here on Stand Up Survivor. This is an entire movement, organizations, advocates around the nation. Because of the moment that I walked into your office and that God ordained for us to meet. And so today, you guys, Janelle is actually with Stand Up Survivor. She is our clinical director here. She's a master's in social work. She's a social worker that advocates for survivors still to this day. We bring on social work interns who turn around and are just amazing because she teaches them and trains them. But oh, yay, they love our story. Thank you. We love it. You guys, let me tell you, this woman was at my wedding. She was crying harder than me. I'm like, is she crying? She was hysterically crying at my wedding. But she saw me broken, right? And she journeyed with me to here, where she sees me heal and thrive and turn around and help millions of other people every day. And for that, I'm forever grateful. So can you tell me, what is your biggest, when you look at Stand Up Survivor and where it is now, what would you say is like your proudest moment, or what do you think about when you think of it?
Oh my gosh. My proudest moment? There's so many moments to be proud of. Like, having a global reach, first of all. We've helped people in Australia, Jamaica, the United States, of course. What else? We just, the survivors that you help on this platform, the people that you help directly and indirectly, bringing on interns that, like you said, we are able together to train, to give them, the survivor side and then the clinical side, and put that together to what they already have with their compassion, and train up advocates and social workers that we know the world needs. Being able to have our space, our office, when we reach that milestone.
Gosh, all these milestones together.
So many. Like, there's just so many. There's not just one thing. Like, there's just so many things, and I'm just so excited for everything that is still left to come, because to your point, like, God really gave you a purpose. And although in those moments when you're walking through a difficult season, and it's hard to see like what's the reason that I'm going through this, just know that God knows the reason.
Yeah.
And there is a purpose. There is a testimony to your trials, and you've been able to exemplify all of that, and
Thank
there's
you. Yay.
just
I
been
want, I
great.
want people to know that they can make it, and that's what this
Yeah,
thing is. That's how Stand Up Survivor started. Like, yeah, I was at my lowest. I had nothing but two children, two of the cutest little kids, with me. But I didn't even know who I was, because that's what domestic violence does. It breaks you down to nothing.
right.
And I decided within myself, I said, no, I have to do something. I have to fight. And literally, I tell people, Janelle, it was like climbing through sludge. Each and every step was climbing through coals, was horrible. But it didn't, it's not that way now. But if they could
Right.
just find their voice, if they can find themselves, if they could just find a little bit of a reason to keep going, then they can make it. And I want
Right.
survivors to know that, hey, there's a beautiful life after. Like
Absolutely.
there's this whole life
Absolutely.
after thing that I'm a huge advocate for, because when you're in it, you can't see it. When
Right.
you're in it, you don't believe that there's anything outside of what you're experiencing. But I want to challenge anyone who's listening today. I am a living example, a living witness, and I am telling you that if you are
Yes.
in hell right now, it doesn't have to stay that way. Janelle, we talk with people who have been in for 20 years, 18 years, or out for that long and still haven't healed. Heal, my love, heal. Don't allow what they did to keep
Right.
you stuck any longer.
Right.
You're out of the relationship, but what they did to you still traumatizes you, still controls your emotions, and you can't heal. Bet on yourself and take a moment to heal so that you can turn your life around. And you don't have to have a platform. That's not necessary. This is just what I've
Right.
been able to do. But like I said in my other life, even if you just whisper it to yourself out loud, you're safe now, you're whole, you're healed, or you say it to the person next to you, you deserve that. Yay. Hey, Iris. Okay, so somebody said, let me see, where do you start with the healing process? You want to answer that, Janelle? She's a social worker. Go for it. Where do you start with the healing process?
So I'm a big proponent of seeking counseling.
Yeah.
Seeking or if you want to talk to somebody, that's a safe space. But you definitely, in order to heal, you have to talk about it.
Yeah.
And let it out. All the emotions that you felt. Like, even for a while, there was things that in Lisa's story that I was like, wait, what? You didn't tell me that. Or I don't even,
Yeah.
Because what happens is, as we're healing, things are coming out. They tend to come out in the way that what hurt us the most is in the forefront. So it's not a linear process, right? And so things would come out for Lisa, and I was like, wait, but when was that? Or so definitely I recommend speaking with a counselor, and talking about it. It's really important, and that when you're talking about it, it's in a safe space. You don't just do it with anybody. So.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And if you're able, counseling is good, journaling is good. If you
Journaling, yes,
journaling was really healing for me. Even when I was in my abusive relationship, I journaled a lot. And every time he would apologize, I would rip that page out, because I would often go back and read to remind myself what happened. And so I find myself always erasing the stuff, like ripping out the pages of the abuse, so as though we're forgetting about it. You don't forget that stuff. And the journey to healing, like you said, is not a straight line. It does not go all the way up to the mountaintop and you're healed. There's going to be good moments, bad moments, hard moments. And that's why I say, for anyone who wants to turn around and help someone, it is so important that you heal, because this line of work can be extremely triggering.
Right.
You don't want it to set you back or to take you into a space where you can't move forward. So it's really, really important that you take the time to heal before turning around to try to become an advocate, because survivors need you at your strongest and they need you at your best.
Right.
So that's really, really important. Listening to music, journaling is also really good therapy.
Yes, definitely moving also. Yes. Journaling, music, dance, drawing, anything that will get you to express. If you are not good with your words talking, but you're really good drawing, like whatever will help you. What's going to help you.
Yeah. and find that thing, and I would also encourage, but I don't want to talk about it too long, but no contact. For a long time, I would keep his messages or reread them, even though we weren't in a relationship, because it was so familiar, even though it was painful. Go no contact if you can. And I had 2 children, so I still had the court abuse process going on, child support. I still had child custody going on. But Gray Rock, keep the conversations to a minimum. Don't allow yourself, you don't need to figure out who they're dating and who they're with. You got to cut off contact. You know what I mean? Don't keep that door open, because it just gives them an opportunity to continue to hurt you.
Right.
All right. So I'm going to wrap it up with my advocate here. Thank you, Janelle, so much.
Thank you.
I love you for life.
I love you so much.
And as wherever she gave it up. So wherever I told this woman, she has just been such a huge impact in my life. And the thing is, she continues to journey with me no matter what. And I tell survivors this all the time. I tell survivors, we're not going anywhere. You can't go back enough times. You can't make us not mad enough. There's nothing that you can do. We're here for you. So when you pick up that phone, when you send that message, when you send that email, when you come by our office and you're ready, we are here to journey with you, because my advocate never let go of my hand, and she still has not let go of my hand. So thank you. I love you for life.
Thank you for having me. Love you.
See y'all later.
Bye, guys.